Well, hello, and thank you for joining. I'm going to start over because already I'm having to clear my throat.
No
Well,
worries.
hello, and welcome everyone to a special episode today. I am joined by Kris Maxwell, who is the functional nutritional therapist for Team Special Forces. And to maximize the efficiency of the one on one call that we have once we receive the results of your food sensitivities test, and so that we can share information about this awesome process with more people, we wanted to put together this informative special on what is really a key part of Team Special Forces methodology, the food sensitivity testing. So, Kris, will you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what we're going to go over today?
Sure. Hi, my name is Kris Maxwell. I am a functional nutritional therapist. I've been working with Jill for quite some time now, 3 or 4 years. And I specialize in my practice in food sensitivity. I have quite a bit of experience with that in my own family and with myself. So we're going to go over the tests that we use and how it works and what to expect when you get your results.
Perfect. So, Kris, can you tell us a little bit about what nutritional therapy is and what inspired you to pursue it?
Sure. So nutritional therapy we use supplements and diet changes, and some amount of testing to evaluate where the body's at and how we can make improvements, especially through diet and with supplementation, how we can get you feeling better. Um, I also use muscle testing sometimes in person, but this is a great way to get a really quick snap of where people are at, this food sensitivity test, to see how we can help them right away and remotely, no matter where you are. Do you?
So, yeah, maybe we can go into your process and kind of your own journey and how you used this to improve some symptoms that were almost debilitating in your own life.
Years ago, yeah, I had, I think it was 2014. Yeah, I was having headaches, like migraine headaches, all day, every day. And no matter what I took and what I tried, they just were not going away. So, I went to the doctor and the doctor said, well, let's do a CAT scan of your brain. And I'm in my 20s and I'm like, I don't really think I have a brain tumor, but okay. Cause it just wasn't that bad. It wasn't, it was just this all day headache. And so no, I don't want to do that. I didn't have insurance at the time. Um, and so I went to a naturopath and she said, well, you need a food sensitivity test. And I said, okay, yeah, let's do it. So I took the test and the results came back and I was sensitive to gluten, eggs, and dairy. At the time, I was living alone and I think I was surviving on hard-boiled eggs and fried egg sandwiches for the most part,
Yeah.
because it was cheap and quick and easy, and I was working 2 jobs. And so she pretty much told me that everything I was eating had to go. I said, okay. Um, and within 30 days, I mean, probably within the first 2 weeks, my headaches were gone,
Wow.
which was just amazing by itself. But like 30 days later, I had lost 25 pounds. I felt amazing. I felt better than I ever have. And I kind of wanted to shout it from the rooftops,
Yeah.
telling people like, oh my gosh, you don't have to feel terrible every day. And
Mm.
maybe your weight isn't the result of what you're eating or what you're not eating or how much you're exercising or you're not. Like there's other factors involved. And so that just kind of led me down the whole road of, how food really affects people, both physically, emotionally, mentally, everything. So
Yeah.
in 2017, I decided to go to school and actually learn more about nutritional therapy and the human body and how everything works together, um, and how to optimize those systems in the body. Making sure the liver's working right, making sure digestion is great. Because if all those things don't work together, you won't process your food correctly, regardless of what you're eating or not eating. So, learned so much there, and I've used this test over and over with my own family, lots of friends who are just struggling with health issues. It's kind of my go-to because it's very efficient. Just quick
Right.
results, quick answers.
So that's a perfect segue. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what kind of test it is and where that test is run.
Sure. So the test we're currently working with is a hair sample test, which is kind of rare in the food intolerance world. Um, a lot of tests are blood tests that are going to measure particular IgG or IgE antibodies in your body, in your blood. This test is measuring, it's called a bioresonance test, and it uses a machine. It's called a Mars 3, if anybody really wanted to know that. But the machine can store the optimal energy levels of millions of items. So this test runs your hair against 975 items, and it measures the body's energetic response to those items. And so when it comes in above 85%, that means you're having a negative response over 85% to these items. And in some cases, when they're measuring, say, it measures a whole bunch of different things, and I'm going to go through those, but sometimes it measures an imbalance, and sometimes it tells us there's an intolerance, so kind of a negative reaction.
Got
The
it.
test is run in Europe, which is a little bit different. So when you do first receive your paperwork, it's going to tell you to mail your sample to Florida, and they then get shipped overseas to England, where the test is actually run. One of the things that occasionally happens that we're seeing is that samples are getting stuck, possibly in customs, getting over to Europe. So occasionally we'll have to have clients resend a sample if it doesn't make it to the lab, which is a little bit frustrating, but worth it in efficiency for this test.
Absolutely. So once we get the test results, we schedule a three-way call between Kris, you, and myself to go over your individual test results. So after that call is when we officially enter into phase 2 of your nutrition program, which is the 30-day elimination. So Kris, can you walk us through what the 30-day elimination is and the benefit to doing this?
Sure. So the first part of your test, the first couple of pages are going to be the foods that you're reactive to. They're not allergies and shouldn't be looked at as that. They're intolerances. So right now your body is either not digesting those foods well or not tolerating them well and having some kind of reaction to it. So we're going to give you this list, and we're going to go over it, go through the items and their related products, because sometimes you won't make correlations if it says condensed milk, that's going to be a sign that you're intolerant to dairy as a whole. And so we're going to ask you to cut out that whole food category and all the things on your list for 30 days. What that does is it gives your body a chance to calm down the inflammation that's primarily in the small intestine. And you hear it referred to often as leaky gut. We need the gut wall to calm down and the swelling to go away so that you can start healing. A lot of the time what we see is that there'll be a primary intolerance, which we consider usually gluten, eggs, or dairy, the big three, the ones that I had all three of. Those are usually kind of what trigger a secondary response, where then people will have other food proteins leaking in and out through the gut wall. And that can trigger similar to an autoimmune response to a food, where, I guess not autoimmune, that's the wrong word, an immune response to a food, where maybe it's artichoke that you ate. And if it's leaking out through that open gut barrier, then your body just starts to see artichoke as bad and then mounts a response to artichoke. And you shouldn't have a response to a vegetable. Usually after 30 days, when we've closed up that gut barrier, those kind of responses, the secondary responses to food, to the healthier foods, or to spices or fruits, many of those will drop off and not be an issue anymore. What will remain is usually those primary intolerances that might last more than 30 days.
Right.
Some of them I could say might last a lifetime.
Yeah.
I can say from my own experience, I still cannot tolerate egg, although after doing some gut work, I can tolerate gluten and dairy now
Wow.
in limited amounts. I can't go crazy.
Right. Same for me. So,
Yeah.
one thing that we frequently encounter is people telling us that they don't have any symptoms. And maybe the symptoms aren't really understood very well. So, this doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have GI symptoms.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean constipation, diarrhea, doesn't mean heartburn or stomach problems. I mean, those are going to be big red flag type symptoms. If you are experiencing those, clearly something is out of balance and we need to do some work. But there's some other things that can be improved by going through the 30-day elimination and other symptoms that people might not even correlate to a food sensitivity. What are some of those other ones that people might look out for?
I've seen a lot of skin issues. Eczema is a big one. I've seen acne
Hmm.
is a big one. So definitely it can come out through the skin. That's our biggest detox organ. Headaches for sure.
Yeah.
Fatigue, just general fatigue can be, a big issue, or even what seems like a blood sugar spikes and plummets
Okay.
can be caused because any any form of stress on your body will raise your blood sugar. That's what your body is designed to do when there's stress. And if food is causing stress, um, that can increase your blood sugar too. So
Interesting.
even I've seen, on a keto, people attempting a ketogenic meal
Yeah.
plan, um, it can be really hard to stay in ketosis if you're eating a food intolerance, because it actually
Fascinating.
does cause the body to raise your blood sugar. And so you fall out of ketosis really easily. And it could be something like, maybe you're intolerant eggs, dairy, but what if it's chicken or
Sure.
beef,
Sure. We
and just
actually
easily
saw
be those
that.
things?
Sorry, finish.
No, go ahead.
Oh, well, with it's interesting that you bring up chicken because that's such a staple in a bodybuilder diet. And we know of
Hmm.
an athlete on another team who season after season, he just wasn't getting quite stage lean enough. It always looked like he had this little film of water over his body. He comes back a third season and Coach Keith sees him and says, "Hey man, you look incredible. What did you do? What's the difference?" He's like, "Well, turns out I was sensitive to chicken. So I stopped eating chicken." And I dropped the final
Right.
few pounds, but that would explain that little layer of inflammation, that watery look. So it's really important to us as part of our protocol that during the last 8 weeks at least of someone's competition prep with us, that we avoid all of the foods on the food sensitivities test, even if we've already gone through that 30-day elimination and reintroduced some things, and maybe we're not having symptoms anymore. We do find that the diets are more successful and people have an easier time getting stage lean when they just avoid the foods on that list.
I
Um,
think I think it's amazing, and it makes so much sense
yeah,
you know what you've learned to do and what we're doing together. It just makes so much sense if you're trying to optimize someone's body composition to just, if you reduce the inflammation, I mean, that's
yeah.
the key, really.
Yeah. And then we're able to efficiently allocate these macronutrients
Right.
with whole foods that our body can absorb. So we can theoretically build more lean tissue, which is what we're chasing, with the
Right.
foods that our body can absorb rather than just having them sit sluggishly in our slow digestive system or passing through before our body can take up the nutrients from them. So we actually, during this 30-day elimination, it can be a little overwhelming, but one of the things that we really like to shift the focus to is the foods that you need more of in your diet. So, Kris, will you explain a little bit about the nutrient deficiencies and then kind of our approach of supplementing those with whole foods and supplements?
Definitely. So after we go through the food sensitivities, and there's another page that tells us environmental sensitivities that, occasionally we'll have something we need to touch on, but there's also nutritional imbalances page. And the nutritional imbalances, they're not necessarily the things that are going to show up on that page, aren't going to be intolerances. Like I said, it's just saying your body may need more of some of these items. Occasionally, if you're already supplementing with something, it'll show up on that page. And that's okay. That just can mean that your body, especially with water soluble vitamins like vitamin C or your vitamin Bs, your body is flushing out the extra, which is what it's supposed to do. So they may show up on there. And I always like to have a supplement list that you're already taking before we kind of go over this page. But some things will show up on there like trace minerals. We get a lot of trace minerals, magnesium, calcium, silica, even we've even had sodium come on there.
Right.
And so I think as athletes, especially, people deplete their trace minerals really quickly when they're training. So we try to provide supplementation to replace that as easily as possible. You could drink gallons of water a day, and that's not going to give you all the minerals that you need. So having these specialized balanced minerals for you to provide your body to make sure that you're getting exactly what you need when you're training. There's other items, some things we can do through food and some we can't. Selenium is a big one that I see, especially thyroid, people with kind of lower end thyroid function. Selenium can be a big booster, and we just recommend something like Brazil nuts every day, a couple of Brazil nuts every day. We'll sometimes see, a need for digestive support, both there and there's a digestive analysis page that will tell us if you need more enzymes. And that, again, is something that many of us need, but just don't know that we need.
That really fascinated me when I started working with you, was to learn that most people have low stomach acid. So taking an antacid to kill what little precious stomach acid you have to break down your foods is the opposite of what you should actually be doing.
Very, very opposite. And I think the number is something like 90% of people are actually deficient in stomach acid.
Wow.
Even though we all think that we get heartburn because we have too much, it's actually not. It's this huge release that happens when we're eating that causes the heartburn, or sometimes it's lack of being able to tolerate a food as well. That can cause, recurrent GERD symptoms for people, and just cutting out a food can make it go away.
Right.
To me, that's better than, taking Tums all day, every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So post 30-day elimination, you might start to introduce certain foods from your sensitivities list again. So Kris touched on it a little bit, but once people do start reintroducing, what foods do you like to see them reintroduce first? And then what ones would they maybe save for rare occasions?
I definitely, if we get gluten, eggs, and dairy on a test, I say that those need to kind of stay in the background, especially during any kind of competitive season. Those are just the big ones, and unfortunately in this country they're pretty toxic at this point. I like for people to start with the healthy foods on their list that maybe were just secondary intolerances. So vegetables, lettuces, fruits, even in moderation. And then I follow up the test with, actually, when you receive your test, you're going to get something called a pulse test form. And it's going to give you instructions and a place to record your results. And what that is because food intolerances cause stress on the body, in that stress, your heart rate also increases. And it's a measurable amount. So this test is going to guide you through being able to check if any of those foods are still causing a reaction in your body after the 30 days. So you reintroduce one food at a time. Maybe let's go with artichoke. It's my favorite of the day. And put some artichoke in your mouth, chew it up, and take your pulse after you've done that. And if it's raised more than 10 beats per minute from what it was before the artichoke, then you're still having a problem, and you should keep that food out. If it doesn't increase, then you can feel free to reintroduce it as part of your diet. within reason. We don't want people to go too crazy, because if there was that immune response initially, it's pretty easy to go back to having that immune response again just by eating things often.
Right. And
So,
what we really find is most people, once they give things up during the 30-day elimination, they develop new habits, find new things that they enjoy eating, but most of all start to experience these benefits to feeling better. Little things like maybe improved mental clarity, lack of brain fog, they're sleeping better, just these other side benefits other than the major symptom that was the primary complaint, or they didn't realize they had any symptoms, but now they're lifting more in the gym and their weight's dropped a couple pounds without doing anything different. So a lot of people get to the end of the 30 days and they're like, yeah, I'm just not going to bring that one back in, or save it for that birthday slice of cheesecake or something like
right,
that.
right. I've seen a lot of people where they, they'll go through even a longer elimination than 30 days.
Mm.
Like, let's say they haven't eaten gluten in a really long time, and they'll have it on a special occasion and just get blasted by symptoms
Yes.
and feel
Yes.
so terrible that they're just like, nope, I don't really want to eat it anymore, because the consequence is greater than the reward.
Right. And that is a common reaction for people, that the sensitivity almost gets worse
Hmm.
after elimination and then reintroduction. And
Yeah, yeah. I try to tell people that I don't feel like it's really getting worse. I feel like you're paying more attention,
okay.
or you felt better for the
Yeah.
first time because you took all of those symptoms away from all those different foods and you felt good. And so then it's so much easier to feel it when one item really triggers you, because you don't feel bad every day all day, right?
Right.
At least
Exactly.
for me, I think that's how it worked. It was very clear.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Same. So, in closing, once you get your test results, we invite you to take 20 minutes or so, sit down, read those, just kind of formulate a list of questions that you might have so that when we get on the call and go over the results, we can really maximize our time together, because it really is such an important part of our process. Be sure to block out the time for our 30-minute call. Don't be driving or
Mhm.
distracted. If at all possible, this
Yeah.
is really our time to focus on you and strategize how we're going to navigate this next phase with you. And then another thing that we frequently get asked is, what about testing for my family? So when you go through this process, if you want to find out about testing for your spouse or for your children, it can be really fun to get the family on board and have you all
Yeah,
feeling better for symptoms. So that's definitely available for us as well.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Kris, any words of wisdom or advice to leave us with?
Um, just for people not to be too frightened when they, especially sometimes you get your results before we have the call, and it might be a couple of days before we can organize a time, and don't panic.
Right.
It's going to be okay. And you're going to find other foods you love. And even if your favorite foods are on there, there's ways around it. And Jill and I both have so much experience with this that we can find substitute foods for you that you
Yeah,
will enjoy. Yeah.
absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Kris. I really appreciate what you've done for me and our time knowing each other and working together, and then how you continue to help the athletes on the team. And at the end of the day, when people are done working with us, I feel like they have a better understanding of nutrition and a better understanding of what optimized health feels like. So, thank you so much for being a part of that process.
Oh, thank you, Jill. You're doing amazing work.
All right. Bye.